Hey everyone, it's Mike.
And Ravin.
And we're about to do another painting video with the last two Abominations we have left for Zombicide 2nd edition.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the Hobo Abomination.
And I'm going to do Abominawild.
Yours is primed in black and mine's white. I'm going to use some contrast paint to do how we did most of the zombie skin. There's a couple different contrast paints, so I might use Gulliman's Flesh for the start.
Okay.
And you're going to...
Just do standard. I'm going to do some effects, of course, but the rest of it will be regular paint.
Okay. So I'm going to use Gulliman's Flesh at the start.
Yep.
As a contrast paint. This just goes on like a wall, so you just got to make sure you don't pull it on too much because it will soak into the recesses.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily as dark as it looks in the bottle.
Nope. So let's go on this first. Yeah, Dark Old Flesh is a little darker, and Fire Slayer is more dwarf-like reddish skin color.
Okay. That's good to know.
And you can always paint over this too. So it's okay if it's a little messy. Let's go over where all the skin is. And I also layer up from contrast paint too, because some people, if you just want to get it tabletop ready, you could just use contrast paint and paint the whole model like that.
Yep.
But
no, we're going to do a little bit. You're going to do a little bit of layering on top of that, right?
Yeah. So I'll do the rest of the skin and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to start with Mr. Abominawild, is I'm going to start doing the fleshy bits. So the first color I'm going to use is called Natural Flesh, and it's from the Nocturna, I think that says Nocturna, Fantasy Pro line by Vallejo. So it's just kind of a neutral fleshy color that I'll change to look a little bit more zombie-ish with washes and stuff.
Okay.
I think it's called Cleo Green shade. Is what I usually use. So we'll just go where the fleshy bits are. Add that on there. And then I will come back and show you guys what it looks like once I have that all done.
So you got all the skin down now, right?
Yep. So we finished up with the skin, and these stringy bits are actually a shirt, if you look at in the picture.
Yeah.
So I left those on there. So we got the fleshy bits. He's got an interesting shape to his legs, which is interesting. Next, we're going to go on to do the green apron and his gloves. So the color that I chose is light green by Model Color Vallejo.
Okay.
So I'm going to...
So it looks like on the palette.
Yep. This one here. I'm going to go on and I'm going to do the apron in this color. And once I've got the apron and the gloves in this color, so once I've got that on here, I will come back and show you how it looks.
Okay. So the next step I'm going to do.
Yep.
Is the pants. And I like this color for doing jean pants. It's Loot Wolf uniform. I think it's World War II color. It's probably an army color too that you can use, but
yeah,
it's good for jean pants. So I'm just going to do it for those ones here.
Cool.
So I'm just going to do all this jeans on the pants, and we'll show you what it looks like when it's done.
Okay. So we have the light green on there now as his apron and his gloves.
Nice.
I'm not doing exactly like the picture, but close. So the next thing I'm going to do is the shirt, the white sort of ripped up shirt, and there's still some of it there on the back.
Okay.
So I'm going to use Deepkin Flesh from Citadel.
Okay.
And I take a bigger brush to scoop it out. Get some on the palette. And then since I'm going to be doing the ripped bits, I'm going to need a smaller brush. So I'll take this one. Put a little water, get a little water it down a little bit. And then we're going to go back in and get that on the ripped bits. And then once that's all done, I will come back and show you guys what it looks like.
So we finished the blue for his pants.
Yep.
And I also put the blue on the pigeons too, because I can darken them up with some non-oil later, and it matches the jeans pretty close anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do his coat now too.
Okay.
And I'm going to use Green Stuff World Overlord Olive.
Okay.
I'll just over the top. This, and you can paint over the contrast paint too, so you don't. It's thin, so it's easy to paint over top.
Right.
It's also good sometimes to use contrast paints if you don't know what color to use, or you want to like a test to see what it looks like. They're good for doing that too.
Yeah.
Because you can paint over them pretty easily. And I'm just going to finish up doing his coat, and then we'll see what it looks like after.
So we finished up with the white, with the ripped fabric,
Nice.
as you can see. And we're going to move on to some Mephiston Red by Citadel. We're going to do his Neakachief, or whatever you want to call it, and the lawnmower.
Neakachief?
I don't know what else you call it.
Handkerchief?
Handkerchief, neckerchief, I don't know. And the symbols, I'm not absolutely sure what these symbols are, but you can see that they're painted a little bit right in the picture. So
you can make a stop sign, or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, so we're gonna do those little bits of red, and then I'll start with use Citadel Mephiston Red as a base because I like it. So I'll get a little bit of water.
Now the lawnmower in the back, are you just going to do it the Mephiston red, or are you going to do it metallic red at all?
I was thinking about just doing it Mephiston Red, but now that you bring up the metallic, maybe I'll do a red metallic.
Because we have those Syncter Scale 75 ones that have some cool...
Yes, we do. So I'm going to do red metallic on the lawnmower, and then when I come back after doing it, I'll show you guys which paint I used.
Okay. So I'm going to do the cardboard pieces now.
Okay.
And I'm also, because they're small ones, I'm going to do the fence that's inside of his shoulder and on the side chair.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to use Warp Lock Barns for the fence.
Cool.
And I got a new brown color, so I'm going to try it out. Because we occasionally get new colors, so I want to try what this one looks like.
Nice.
So this is Ochre Brown model color from Vallejo.
Cool.
So let's try the Ochre Brown first. We'll do the cardboard. Oh, cool. So that's a
That works.
nice cardboard color. Sometimes I use a scale 75 color to make it look like wood when I'm doing bows and stuff, but this works for cardboard, even if I darken it up with non-oil later or eyegrass to make it look dirty.
Yep.
So I'll do that one. So those would be the signs, and then Warp Lock would be the fences.
Yeah.
Coming out from them.
Yep. Looks
So
good.
I'll do those two colors, and I'll let you guys see what it looks like when it's done.
So we're finished with the Mephiston, and we did this scale 75 Garnet Alchemy color. That's the red metallic on the lawnmower, which I think looks really cool. Thank you for that suggestion.
Yep, there's some nice layers up from that too that you can use too for the metals for it. So
Yep, I think it's a good idea. Next, we're going to do some of the bits that are sticking out of him that are metal. We're going to do in this sort of darker kind of chromy color called Lead Belcher from Citadel. And with we're going to take some Abaddon Black, and that's going to go on the tubing and some of the spots that it's on the lawnmower, the edging on the lawnmower, and on the shoulder straps from the lawnmower backpack.
okay. So which one are you gonna do now?
I'm gonna start with the black.
So you're just gonna
On the tubing looking stuff, he has this big tube in his arm.
and then the lead belcher will go.
Lead Belcher will go on some of these jagged bits, which are...
Oh, stuff sticking out of them and stuff?
Yeah, because he's got a bunch of random stuff sticking out of him.
Oh. And then when you're done that, we'll see what it looks like.
Yep.
So we got the ochre brown on the signs.
Yep. Looks good.
And got the war block on the fences that are in them.
Yep.
There.
Looks
I
good.
also, when I was waiting, I went back and did a little bit more darker of the Overlord olive because it was a little thin.
Okay.
So I did a second coat on that a little bit. So it's not so much white showing. You got to watch that with the white primer. You don't want white to be in random spots.
Yeah.
But once you hit it with non-oil or agrass, it hides it a bit or affects.
Yeah.
So right now I'm going to do a gray. It's like a bluey gray color from scale 75.
Okay.
And I'm going to put that on his beard and on the feather parts of the pigeons.
Right. Nice.
I'll just show you a bit of that till I get to the next one. So, again, it's just a base. You don't got to be too perfect
Oh.
because you can touch it up.
I think they're pigeons or ravens.
They're pigeons. He's hobos. He's a
Oh,
hobo.
okay. So yeah, they're pigeons.
So, that's the gray there. And I'll put a little bit of the gray on the pigeon's wings.
Cool.
It's just a little bit tone different than the blue that I put on there before.
Yeah.
I can go up and touch it up again later, but just so it's a little bit lighter. And then I'll do a layer on there later so it brings it up a bit more.
Yeah.
And then the next one is all his little bandages and straps around him.
Yeah.
I'm going to do in a white color, like that.
Okay.
And what I usually use for whites now, because it's easy to work with, is the silver gray.
Yeah.
It says silver gray, but
But it's white.
a nice white
Yeah.
color. And I'll just go and do all the bandages. And then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done.
Great. So, we finished up with the black and the lead belcher. There's some spots with straps and tubes and everything that we did in the black. And the lead belcher was all these pokey bits. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to do, you can see in the picture a bit better that his brain is exposed.
Okay.
So I'm going to do this sort of pinky brown rose color from Monocolor Vallejo on the brain. And then he has a, I think it's a bone mask. It looks like a bone mask to me. So I'm going to paint the mask this bone color called Thor Brown from scale 75. And he also has a pair of headphones on that happen to be bright yellow. So the earpieces, you can't see them very well if I just point at them, but I'm gonna put Flash Glitz Yellow from Citadel on those. And then at the same time, I'm gonna do his pants in Saddle Brown from Vallejo.
Okay. So which one are you going to do first?
First, I'm going to do the brown rose with the braid. Put a little bit of the pink on there. So I got his brain. Then we'll add some blood and some goo to that after to make it a bit more obvious that is in fact his brain. So next we'll do the bone mask. We'll just take a tiny bit and be careful not to touch the pink so it doesn't run into
Well, it's
each
your
other.
base. It doesn't matter if you're too messy.
Yeah. It's okay for a little messy, but we don't want to have don't want it to make a big mess, right? So. My bases are always a bit messy. Okay, so now we got the bone on there. We're going to hit the earphones with some Flash Glitz Yellow. It'll be quick because it's just a little bit here. We already did the strap for the earphones in black and a little bit of lead belcher. Then we will move on to the pants. And I will put a little...
What color are you doing for the pants?
The pants are saddle brown from Vallejo. So we'll get the brown going on there, and then we'll show you what it all looks like when it's done.
So I did the lighter gray on the wings.
Yep.
And on his beard, and then we finished up the straps with the white around them.
Yep.
So the next thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to put texture paint on the base, I'm just going to take a gray contrast paint to fill in all the whites, just in case we miss a spot.
That's a good idea.
And with contrast paints, I don't know if I mentioned it before, I use a shade brush, because it's still like a watt and thick, that it might wreck your actual good painting brushes, so I use a shade brush.
Yeah.
It's just a crappy brush if you want. So you don't got to worry about wrecking your brush too much.
Yeah.
So this doesn't have to be perfect to cover white. It's just to
cover
some of the white when I put the texture paint over top. The texture paint's probably going to cover everything, but it's just, especially the edges, sometimes you miss with the texture paint.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's watery or anything, it's going to dry a bit. And then that's just for the base there.
Yeah.
And that's the... Mine's separated a bit, I think, anyway, but it's just for coverage anyway.
Yeah.
So that's that. And then his teeth, I'm going to use Valkyrie yellow.
Okay.
And his nails. So they're kind of yellow and dirty. That came up it. And we're just going to do the inside of his mouth. With the yellow, we can dirty it up with agrass or stuff later.
Yep.
And his nails down here, I'll just run across his nails with it. And I don't know if he has any sharp nails exposed. Nope. So that's just his first teeth.
Awesome.
There's the yellow. And then for his tongue, it's a scale 75 fuchsia.
Yeah.
It's not so bright pink. I find it's good for tongue color.
Yeah.
I use for a lot. So just the inside of his mouth. It's a little watery, but let's try it. And go for his tongue.
Cool.
And then the final step, I'm going to do blood red. And then I'm going to do the outlines for the sides.
Okay.
Which are the red on the signs in there.
Yeah, the writing.
Yeah. And I find with scale 75, because it's a flat paint, doing letters or freehanding stuff, it works well.
Okay, that's good to know. That's important.
And I use a little bit of a smaller brush this time. To just go over the raised bits of the sign.
Yeah.
Kind of almost like dry brushing that completely. I'm just brushing over the raised bits. I find that's easier because if you try to pick out and try to go along the lines with each letter, that's when sometimes I mess up sometimes too. So I just kind of like a dry brush effect, just go over top of it.
Yeah, I think that's the
and then you can always touch it up later when you're doing layers.
Yeah.
Same as this, right? There's right here, and then there's, I know on the picture it looks like they got wrecked here, so that's just a little paint effect in there, right?
Yeah.
And then the final step that we'll show when we come back is I'm going to do texture paint this time on the base.
Cool.
So it's astrogranite debris.
Neat.
So what I use sculptor tools or whatever you do to get it in there.
Yeah, clay tools.
Clay tools. Take it out in clumps. And you could wait till you should actually wait till the contrast paint's dry, but it's okay. I'm just going to put it on there. And you just move it around wherever you want there's texture to be.
Yeah.
Take it up that way, and then sometimes I take my crappy brush after it's out of there, and that's what I do like if I want to get closer to the legs.
Yeah.
Just shift it around a bit.
It's kind of like thick mud, right?
Yeah, there is
Texture
other
one?
ones like Sterling Mud is another texture paint. And when it dries, it's going to dry like it is in here. So wherever you want there to be raised bits, just leave it like that. And when it dries, you can go back with a dry brush or leave it like that
Yeah.
to make it look like pavement.
Cool.
So I'll do the back half of it and I'll show you it when it's done. Okay.
So we are done with the saddle brown, which is on the pants. I think it's a nice kind of mid-tone brown. And then we did the, sorry, I'm putting the color, did the brown rose on the brain, which is, brains are pinkyish. I think it works. And the Thor brown on the skull mask. So it's sort of a, not quite the same as the flesh, enough to differentiate between the two. And then I used Flash Glitz Yellow for the headset, and I put it in the middle of the signs. You can't really see the signs in the picture, so I'm just doing them how I think they would be, and put them in the middle of the signs on the bottom there. So next we're going to move on to the inside of his mouth and his teeth. I'm going to try to do similar to the picture. I've got Pink Horror by Citadel for the inside of his mouth. And I have Zamsi Desert for his teeth. So, grab this brush and don't need a lot of the pink. He doesn't have a very big mouth. But get some in there. There we go. And his teeth are pretty tiny, so we'll just do a little tooth there. We got the teeth. There we go. Clean that up after. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do an overall wash of Athonian Camo Shade.
So yeah, we find out it looks good with a little bit of, it's like agrass mixed with green, gives them a little more grungier look too.
Yep, gives them a little bit of green tinge that you'd think dead skin would kind of have a off green tinge to it a little bit. So we're going to shake it up.
And we'll show you what it looks like when it's done.
Yep.
So the contrast base on the base now, still wet. So we got to wait till it dries. It probably takes sometimes about half an hour to an hour tops maybe.
Yeah, waiting for the texture paint to dry.
I'm still going to do a little bit of steps too. So I have this iron to put on, Iron Warriors.
Yep.
For the buttons and stuff. So I'm just going to paint out of the palette. You're supposed to put it on the palette to water and stuff, but I'm just doing a little bit, so I'm going to take it right out of the brush.
Sometimes if you got to do something teeny tiny, it's okay.
All the metals too. You don't have to add too much water to the metal sometimes.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing swords and stuff, I find if you want it nice and crisp and clean, you can water down weapons and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm just doing the little dots on his buttons here. I think that's all of them. Yeah, that looks like a ball. So we do these buttons. And then next step is to make his skin look more rotted or undead. So on top of the contrast paint we did before, the Gullimans,
Yep.
I'm going to take Chili Violet
Nice.
and put this you can use any crappy brush you want or anything, or a shade brush, and just put it in recesses or where you think wounds are.
Yep.
So I'm going to put it on top, even the little bubbles too. You don't have to do an overall wash with it, just in little recesses or where you think the skin would look damaged.
Yeah.
So just go around. There's no right or wrong to do it, wherever you think would look. My contrast paint, not contrast paint, sorry, the texture paint at the bottom isn't dry, so just be careful not to hit it.
Yeah.
A thing you could do with the texture paint too, I got a little bit with the gray here. If you're using the mud or even this, if you bring it up on the model, you can make it look like mud went on there and stuff too.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
So just all the damage there. So now his skin looks a little more damaged.
Yeah.
And then, while this is still a little bit wet, so you can kind of blend into it, I will take the Dracnoff Nightshade.
Yep.
This one's almost done. I got a new bottle, but and where you want it even lighter, like even the top of the bubbles a little bit that's on the skin, I would blend it in with the purple too.
Cool.
Even around its head a bit. Mixing it with the purple when the purple's still a little wet too, so you're actually blending the two washes together.
Yeah, nice.
Now you gotta remember, sometimes I forget too, because you're blending the two, wash your brush before you put it back in the Nightshade, or you'll get too chilly and Dracnoff mixed together.
Yep.
Some people, especially if you're doing a lot of zombies, especially in this game, there's a lot. You can make your own bottle and your own mix of it if you want.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
But I'm saying, no wrong or right way to do it. Wherever you think there's a little bit of damage. If there's an open wound and stuff, that's where you would put more of the damage too.
Yeah.
But wherever you think would look cool. And then you would just let that dry.
Cool.
So when it's dry, same with the texture paint at the bottom, we'll show you what it looks like and we'll be ready for the layers too.
Cool.
Also the eyes on the birds, I put the little red in the eyes too because they look like little crazy pigeons too because they got red in the eyes in the picture.
Yeah.
So I put those too.
Cool.
And when those dry, I'll probably do an overall wash on it, kind of like you're doing with the camo shade.
Yeah.
So I'll put that on everything. Same with the white too, to dirty it up.
Cool.
So I'm gonna put some more washes on them now.
Yep.
The texture paint's pretty dry. We'll see. I'm gonna do some non-oil first.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put some non-oil on the ground to get into recess to give it more definition.
Yep.
And some non-oil on the pigeons up there. And that's probably about it because I want everything else to look dirty.
Okay.
So I'm going to use some non-oil. If it's still a little bit wet, I'm just dabbing it on. I'm not going to go over it too much because it's still a little wet.
Yeah, and you don't want to end up smearing and getting texture paint on your wash brush.
Especially when it's underneath stuff and some of the big clumps of it takes a bit to dry.
Yeah.
I'm going to dry brush over top of this afterwards.
Right.
So, okay. There we go. So that's a non-oil on the cement at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to take some non-oil and put it over top of the pigeons because they're not going to be dirty really.
No.
Just want them darker so I can get into the recesses and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so the non-oil's done.
Yep.
I'm going to use Agrass now on the bandages because I want them to look a little dirty.
Right.
So I use Agrass Earthshade. Sometimes you can watch R1 got a little, it's a little shiny, this mix. But almost like Agrass Gloss, so I'm not going to be too heavy-handed because then it's going to be too glossy.
Yeah.
But
gotta make sure your shades are mixed really good.
So just making the bandages look a little dirty. And even if I want to make them more dirty, when I do the camo shade, I'll go over the bandages with that a little bit too.
Right.
So just some over his face. I'll even darken up maybe his teeth a bit with that Agrass and his toes, make them look a little dirty.
Yep. Perfect.
The cardboard I'll go with Agrass too a bit too.
Okay.
Just make those look a little dirty too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go over the skin that we already did with the effects before.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to hide it with the other ones, right?
Right.
Unless you want some parts, if you want to make some parts of the skin look a little dirty, you can put agrax on them too, but right. I'm going to leave it as is. And that's the agrax. And then, like you did, so your one, I'm going to do an overall wash, except the skin though. I think you did the skin.
I did do the skin.
You put the skin on top. I'm going to not hit the skin with the camo shade. I'm just going to hit it.
His trench coat.
Trench coat here.
Cape thingy.
Again, don't got to be too exact. It's just to make them look a little dirty.
Yeah.
If you're spot washing stuff, you'd have to be a little more exact, but as long as you're getting everything.
Are you going to put that on his pants too, you think?
Yeah, I think. Okay. Just everything to be dirty. The more you put on your brush or loaded, it's going to be a little more dirty in those spots. Just watch the recesses too, that doesn't pool up in them.
Yeah.
Like I said, even with the camo shade a little bit wet now, I'll just hit maybe a little bit of them. Was it?
Yeah.
On the bandages here. His pants too.
Cool.
Especially in some parts of the recesses you can't see. That way it gives it some definition and you don't have to paint in there later. So
yeah,
in the crevices and stuff you can put the shade in there too.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to put any on the skin too because I want the blue and the purple to show.
Yeah.
But if you want some parts to be a little dirty, or if you want it even to look a little weird, you could take some of it and even put it in the recesses or on some of them. So some of the skin looks dirty, maybe like in his hands that got a little dirt on them.
Yep.
You can put some there on his feet. And that's all the washing on it. So I'm going to let that dry and we'll come back and doing layers and effects and stuff too.
Cool. So we did the overall wash with the camo shade.
You got the nice little green tints and everything. You hit the skin with it, right?
Yep.
Because you had black primer, so you couldn't do kind of the contrast effect that I did.
Nope. I got the skin and the fabric and everything. And now we're going to go back with Carlsberg Crimson, which is sort of like a winey dark red color, burgundy almost. And we're going to get in the boils.
Yeah.
The crazy bumps and stuff. And we're going to do a little bit on his brain.
Okay.
So, I'll shake it up.
Yeah, crimson's really good for doing blood effects or sores and stuff too.
Yeah, because it's not super red. It's a bit darker, which is nice. Yeah. So, I'm using a smaller brush to do this. So I can get in.
Yeah, because if you use a shade brush for it, it's a little thick. It might be a little messy.
Yeah, and it might be too big because some of these spots are very small, right? So just go get in some of the boils, and then I'll show you quick before I do the rest of them. I'm going to wait a sec for that to dry a little bit.
And then you're going to use what next?
And then I'm going to use, I'm just going to close that up so I don't knock it over. I'm going to use a little bit like you did of the Drakenhof Nightshade just along the edges of the boils, just to give them sort of a bruised yuck look. So just get around them a little bit, just so they're kind of disgusting.
Nice.
I'm going to do that up, and then I'll show you what comes next. So we finished off with the wash on the boils of the Carlsberg Crimson and the, I always get it mixed up with the other one, it's Drakenhof Nightshade, the blue one. So you can see they're very sort of bumpy and boily now.
Nice.
And now we're going to move on to layering. And I like to go back over the same color after I wash. So I'm going to go back over with natural flesh.
And we'll see what it looks
like.
We'll
see what it looks like.
Okay. So I got my overall wash on there now, and then contrast still a little, the texture paint at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's still a little bit wet with the non-oil on there, but I'm still going to go over it with the dry brush a bit.
Okay.
And bring it up a bit. So I got London Gray.
Yeah.
For the first layer of dry brushing.
Okay.
On the stone, and then dark sea gray.
Okay.
So I'm going to just do the dry brush first, or the first color. And those who haven't dry brushed before, just make sure there's not a lot of paint on your brush at all, because then you're just basically painting, right?
Yep.
So, just different. People do circles to make sure there's not much paint on there. And then just go back and forth quickly on it. See, it's still wet, so some's going to flake off. So mine, if you wait longer, then it won't flake off.
Yep.
But just do it lightly. If you do it hard, it will also flake off if it's not completely dry.
Right. And dry brushing gives it a different texture to it, right? When you look at it.
Yeah, it's hitting all the raised parts.
Yes.
There. So that's what's the first layer. I'm also going to put stuff on the base later. Like I said, I might put a garbage bag or other stuff on there too. So
sounds good.
It doesn't have to look perfect. And now another thing with dry brushing is you don't want your brush to be wet at all.
Yeah.
Or it will smear. So I'll do another paint while I'm waiting for my dry brush to dry a little bit. Or if you have another dry brush, you can do it too.
Yep.
So I'm going to do Iron Warriors again over top of the iron I have there.
Yeah.
Just to bring it up a little bit.
Okay.
Because he's supposed to be dirty and stuff, I'm not going to try to go too high with the highlights on it, because you want him to look dirty. You don't want him to look clean and really shiny, right?
Yes.
So I'll just go over it.
Also bright and sparkly. It's not really bright and sparkly.
Over where the buttons were, where the metal was, right?
Yep.
So I'll just go back over the buttons. There's a little button here. Those were warp lock blonde, so we don't want to hit those yet.
Yep.
And those were all the metals that were there, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's that. And then on top of the Iron Warriors that we started with, I'm going to do a newer one that we got to, Oily Steel.
Yep.
Has a little bit more of a shine to it, but still a little bit darker. Just on top. So, just on the edges of the buttons, not the complete button, because you still want to show some of the first paint you put it on, right?
Right.
So on the edges of the buttons, give them a little shine. There, now the iron's done.
Awesome.
Now that my dry brush is sat for a little bit, squeeze out the water a little bit. It's okay.
Yep.
I'll go back and do the final highlight on the cement.
Okay.
So, okay, make sure there's not too much paint on it. Back and forth over the raised bits. On edges too, like on the edge of your base. If you're going to paint the rim of your base a different color, you could dry brush the rim of it too.
Yep.
I'm going to leave underneath some a bit dirty because the shadow naturally would go under there, right?
Yep.
So I'm not going to dry, there's no light under there, so you're not going to dry brush underneath them.
Absolutely.
And if you think it's not bright up enough, you can always do another brighter gray, or if you weren't putting anything on the base. I'm going to have some other stuff on there, so I'm not too worried about it having too much definition.
Okay.
So the cement's done now. And the metal's done.
Yep.
So then I'm going to pick another color and let you know what I'm going to do next.
So I finished up with the natural flesh, doing a highlight over top of that. So we finished up with that on the skin, and now we're going to move on to the green. And I'm going to do another layer of the light green over top in some spots, and then I'm going to do the next layer over top of that of Cyberite green from Citadel. I'm not sure how to say that properly. And then on the edges, for just a little bit of definition, we'll do some gas blaster green from Citadel. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, as an edge highlight. So we're going to do that and then come back and I'll show you how it looks.
Are you going to do any more definition on the skin at all, or raise that a bit?
I'm debating on, I think I'm going to do the green first because I kind of like the color that the skin is at the moment. So I'm going to do the green first and then I'm going to go from there and decide. I might put a little bit of an edge highlight on the skin around the boils, but I want to do some of the other stuff first and see how it kind of goes together before I decide on that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to start doing the signs now, layering those up.
Yep.
That's on them. And I'm going to go back over it with ochre brown.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go in all the raised spots. Bring those up a bit.
Yep. Looks good.
Not too bright because it's still supposed to be dirty, right?
Yep.
Just on the edges. So those are brought up a bit.
Yep.
Just clean up any mess that was left behind or anything too. And another thing we do with our paints is when we get them, I'll take a bit and put it on top of the lid too, so I know what it kind of looks like.
Yeah, because sometimes in the bottle it looks different when it's out of the bottle.
Yeah, so I just put it on the top.
Yeah, so that's good.
And then we got another, trying this one out, Tanned Earth is a new one we got.
Yep.
So I'm going to use that as a highlight. I'm just going to put that on the top of the bottle too, so I know what it looks like.
Yep.
And I think I'm actually going to mix it with the ochre brown. So I'm going to take some water, just mix them together on my palette.
Okay.
Just giving it a different shade.
Yeah.
And now I'm just going to highlight the signs in the mixture that I got. Even if it's a tad bit lighter, it's still giving it a little bit of definition.
Yeah.
You don't want it too bright on something that's supposed to be dirty.
Yep.
So just on the raised bits. Careful not to make any nicks anywhere else now because we're doing layering.
Yep.
Now if I don't think there's enough definition with it, I'll take the same paint that I mixed with it.
The lighter one, right?
The lighter one, yep, the Tanned Earth. Put it back on my palette. And this will be my final edge highlight. So just the very edges of stuff in the corners. I'll set this to give it the last edge highlight on things.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the signs. So those are done.
Yep.
The next thing I'm going to do is the skin now. So we already have some definition already with all the washes we did.
Yep.
I'm just going to go over some of the raised parts, maybe the bubbles, and see what it looks like with some of these layers. So I'm going to use the pale flesh color from Vallejo.
Okay.
And then on the edges of that, I'll try pale skin from Vallejo. No, that's scale 75 actually.
Yep.
And then on the very edge of it, I'll do highlight skin.
Okay.
In Vallejo. So I'll just show you one little bubble or something that I'll do on, and then we'll show you what it looks like when it's done.
Okay.
So this is the pale flesh. So I don't want to go over everything because I want to show some of the blue and the purple and the damaged skin, right?
Right.
So just on the raised parts, so there's some there. Here, you want to do a bubble there. Leave some of the purple and blue behind.
Yep.
Bubble there, so that's a couple things that are raised.
Yep.
And if you want the face to have more definition, you'll maybe put it on the face too, so you can see more of the detail on that.
Yep, on the nose, cheekbones type stuff.
But all the recesses, you want that purple and the blue that you put on the wash to stay there, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so put those there. Then the next would have been the pale skin. Cut that. Sometimes the paints get stuck.
Yeah.
So we use a paper clip. And I just.
Yep, if you got to declog.
Yep. Yep, see, it came out. And because it was dried up a bit, I'll add a little bit more water to it.
Yep.
So this will be a highlight on the pale skin you did.
Yep.
So on some of the bubbles. That. Again, it's a zombie, so you don't want them to have too much highlights or definition too much if you want it to look dirty.
Right.
Some of the other parts there. And I'll do more. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done.
Okay.
But there's one. If you want the final highlight and stuff, you don't have to do this one, but maybe on like noses or chins and stuff.
Yep.
Highlighted steel because it's pretty white. You don't want to do the whole thing like that, or you'd be kind of like an albino zombie almost.
Yeah.
But just where, even on the bubbles, if you just like the top of them a bit, just to give it that final definition, maybe like on knuckles and stuff too.
Yep.
That's the bubbles. Can't really see his nose a bit. There's a little bit of his nose here that you can get along the edges. And those would be the 3 layers. And when he's completely done, we'll show you what he looks like.
Awesome. So the highlights on the green are all done.
Those.
Did a little bit on the back too. So next we're going to do a little bit on the handkerchief around his neck, some red, and on his red symbols here. And I'm going to go in and do a little bit of a highlight on the white and clean it up a bit.
And what color are you using?
I'm going back up again with Mephiston red.
Okay.
On the handkerchief around his neck. So we're just going to try to get it on the raised bits only. Just a little on here. More red on the raised bits. I'm going to do some red on the symbols. Let's do some red on the symbols. And then we'll move on to doing the white.
So what white are you using now?
I'm using the same Deepkin Flesh again,
Okay.
because it is supposed to be dirty, and I'm just going to do a little bit in there just to make it pop a bit. Not get rid of all the color that we put on there from the wash, but just some along the lines, just so it pops out more. Then you can see it a little better. Yeah. So I'm going to keep going around with the white.
And when you're done, we'll come back and see what it looks like?
Yep.
So I'm going to go back and do the teeth now.
Okay.
And his tongue.
Okay.
And the red on the signs. And the eyes on the pigeons.
Okay.
That's what he looks like so far. With all the skin done up now too.
Yep.
Now I might go over with effects paints with like the goo and other stuff, so you don't got to be too detailed like in the mouth and stuff too, because I might have stuff coming from it and stuff too.
Yeah.
So I'll use the Valkyrie yellow again on the teeth and the toenails. I'm not even going to highlight this one up because again there might be effects on it or anything afterwards.
Right.
So there's no point in putting highlights on it if you're going to cover it with effects paint anyway.
Yeah.
So there's the mouth. And then the nails might have even been hidden in the dirt, right?
Right.
So just ones that got shown. So there's only one listed little toenail there.
Okay.
So that's the teeth. Then the fuchsia scale 75.
Yep.
So I use probably for almost all the tongues I paint, I use that color. Just in smells a bit unlike the raised parts of his tongue. Or if he had like little bubbles on his tongue or something.
Right.
There we go. Again, I'm not going to highlight it because I'm going to probably have goo or something coming from it.
Yep.
And then the last one is a blood red that we're going to put on the signs and in the pigeon's eyes.
Right.
So I'll start with the pigeon's eyes first.
Okay.
Just put in a little dab. Again, not highlighting that too. If I go back later, I might put another highlight on it, maybe inside the eye, if I can get it in there.
Right.
There we go, just to make them look weird with the eyes. And then the signs, just like we did before, kind of like a dry brush. Go over top of the raised parts again.
Yep.
This time you gotta be a little more careful though not to nick the sign, because this is the highlights, you don't want to look messy, right?
Right.
Just go over the raised parts. Some there. Did I miss last time? Same as over here on the raised parts. And then this is where they made a mess on the sign there in the picture.
Yep.
And then I want that to have a little bit more definition because it's kind of like a center point. So on top of blood red, another scale 75 paint. I'll use that on top.
Yeah.
And this will just be on the edges where the light would hit on the sign.
Right.
Just to give it a little bit more definition. So.
Awesome.
And then I'll figure out what I'm going to do for my next steps of painting.
Okay, so we did a little up from the white, not super bright, like I said, because I wanted to keep some of the greenish tinge from the wash. So next we're going to be moving on to the bone mask. So I'm going to start with Thar Brown from scale 75.
Okay.
And then I'm going to highlight up to this one from scale
Mojave
75.
White, I believe it's good.
Yeah, that's what I think it's called. So it's
Thor Brown, I use a lot of stuff. It's pretty cool. It's good, really good for wings too.
yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah, done a couple of seraphim wings and all this stuff.
I haven't painted very many wings recently.
Also good for bone color too, if you don't want to do the white typical bone.
Yeah. Bleached bone, I think they call it the white bone.
Yeah.
But from the card, as you can see, this is a little bit of a darker bone. And I didn't want it to match what was already on there that was white.
Okay.
Okay, so we got the Thor Brown on there. Now we're going to take some of the Mojave White. And we're going to get a little bit on some of the more tip stuff. So a little bit on tips of his ears here. He's got a little bit of a eyebrow bone I'm going to try to hit. Just to give it a little bit more definition. A little bit up here along the line of where it goes into the brain. There we go. Maybe a little bit under his nose too. Tiny bit up here. Okay, and then next, we're going to go back over, because I want to do some effects paints after, so I'm not going to do a super high highlight with it. We're going to go back over the brain with this brown rose color, which is a nice sort of soft pale pink. And we're just going to get in the little spots here that are still raised. And then when that's done, I'll show you guys how it looks and show you what the next step's going to be.
So I'm going to go and do a little bit more highlights now and stuff. I'm going to do the black inside of the eye so I can hit it with white a little bit too. Okay. So it's just a little dab of black. Any black will work. I'm using this black from Model Color inside the eyes. Like so.
Yep.
So when that dries, I can put a little dab of white in there so it looks like he has pupils in there.
Yep, but you got to remember to wait till it dries.
And then now I'm going to do the gray for the beard and the lighter gray that's on the pigeon's wings.
Okay.
And that was the same one. The gray for scale 75.
Okay.
So just on the raised parts of the beard, I'm going to bring it back up.
Okay.
So those are all brought up now. And then the wings on the pigeon. So those are all brought up now.
Yep.
And now I'm going to mix it with Phoenician Gray for
Okay.
Citadel paints. So I'm just going to mix those two together. Because I don't want it too bright.
Right.
Or if you think you have a shade of a color that can match it. I didn't really have one, so that's why I mixed them together.
Yep.
So on the raised parts of the beard. For the highlights, I'll do those. Again, I'm probably going to have goo dripping down here, so I'm not going to be too crazy worrying about the details on this beard.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have goo coming down from his mouth probably.
Right.
And then on the wings, on the pigeons, on the very edges, bring it up a little bit. On the edges, just to separate it from the other gray that's on there.
Yeah.
That's that. And then I'm going to go back with Phoenician Gray without it being mixed.
Okay.
And I'm going to put it on the pigeon's wings. I'm not going to put it on the beard because the beard is going to be covered with goo probably anyway.
Right.
So on the very edges of the pigeon's wings, I'll put it there.
Okay.
Like so. And if there's anywhere where I don't think the glue is going to hit, so maybe down here a bit on the edge, I'll just put a little bit of it on the beard there.
Right.
Because the glue is probably going to come this way.
Yep.
So that's the beard. And now for the pants, I'm going to go back over the pants, the jean part.
Yeah, with that.
Yeah.
Grayish blue.
Yeah, Luftwaffe uniform World War II, I think it is.
Yeah.
Or number 105 model color.
Yeah.
So I'll go back over. And I want to keep some of the dirty parts of the jeans that make it look like he rolled around the dirt or had dirt on them.
Right.
So I'm not going to go crazy with the highlights.
Right.
Too. So just over some of the raised parts. And then I'll go back and finish it all. But the next highlight from that, I will use Rush Gray.
Okay.
So I'll mix some of the Rush Gray like I did with the other gray with the model color one.
Yep.
To give it a little bit of lighter color. And on the edges, like where there's holes in pants, I'll put that there.
Right.
So just raised parts there. Like there's an edge here, I'd put it over here too.
Yeah.
Edge over there on the pants, just the raised parts. And where there would be light hitting it. You're not going to put it over in the dark because you wouldn't see it anyway.
Yeah.
And on the final edge highlights, if there's anywhere you want to make it a little more brighter, I just take the rust gray without it being mixed. And again, putting it on the very edge parts where it'd be the brightest, just on the edge of the pants. Maybe tears and rips too.
Yeah.
There. And then when it's fully done, I'll go back and finish it. I'll show you what it looks like.
Awesome.
So I'm going to start doing the bandages now with the white.
Okay.
And I'm just going to go back over them with silver gray.
Okay.
So I'm just doing it on the edges because we don't want them to be too bright. And you want some of them still look dirty.
Yep.
So I'm just going to go over some of the raised areas in the white.
Yep.
Make some of the bandages stand out a little bit. The ones on his feet are in shadow, so I'm not going to do too much to those.
Okay.
And doing touch-ups. If some of the wash went on them, you can clean them up too.
Yeah.
So that's the white. And I'm not going to highlight it any higher than that because you don't want it too bright.
Right.
So, and then I'm going to go back with the warp lock over the spikes. Looks like there's a fence in them.
Right.
So I'll go back with warp lock bronze again.
Okay.
Just doing cleanup. And then for the highlight of that, I use decayed metal for scale 75.
Okay.
It's close to warp lock, but it seems like there's a little bit more golden in a tiny bit.
Okay.
So I'll do it on the highlights. And then the final highlight will be old copper from scale 75.
Nice.
Just on the tips. Some edges that sun would hit.
Yeah.
That's that. And for the final step I'm going to do his coat. So we'll go back over it with Overlord Olive.
Yep.
Clean it up. And then I'll highlight it with Dark Umber. Those are both Green Stuff World ones.
Right.
Highlight. And then the final one, if I need it, if I want to get like the very edges where light might hit or shine off it,
Yeah.
I'll do Brown Clay.
Yeah, we use that color a lot.
Yeah. So that one's going to take a little bit. So I'll show you what it looks like when it's done, actually.
Awesome. So now we're going to move on to the mouth and the teeth. And we're going to do a little bit more yellow on the headset and in the symbols.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with inside the mouth. And inside the mouth I have Pink Horror by Citadel. So I'll just get a slightly smaller brush. We don't need a whole lot. We just want to put some where the light might see it a little bit. Because I think I'm going to put some effects in there too. So
yeah, you're going to get...
not really going to be able to tell what color it is, but it's always good to have it in there just in case.
Okay.
And then I'm going to use, because his teeth are not super yellow, but they're definitely a bit yellow, I'm going to use Zamsi Desert on his teeth, which are way tiny. So I'm going to be careful. Go in and get his teeth. And see his teeth. And then I'm going to do the yellow, the bright yellow, which is Flash Glitz yellow.
Okay.
So I'll start a little bit in here. Some in there. Try not to make a mess on the red we already did. Has these big yellow earphones. Get on the earphones. Okay, and then I'm going to.
And what yellow was that?
That is Flash Glitz yellow.
So you're going to go back over it with the same one you did the base with, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and then now we're going to move on to layering the pants. And the original pants color, which I'm going to do for my first layer, is Saddle Brown. So we're going to do a little bit of that, and then we're going to do a slightly lighter. I don't want to go too light because, you know, he's supposed to be dirty. He's an abomination. So I'm going to do red leather as the
Maybe
next
you'll mix it
highlight.
with the brown to see if it's too bright?
I might mix them together once they're out of the bottle to see if it's too bright. And then when I come back, I'll show you what it looks like. So we finished up with the brown, and I ended up I did a little bit of the saddle brown by itself, and then I mixed the saddle brown and the lighter color together. I believe it was called red leather, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mixed them together and did another layer, and then I did just on some of the edges a little bit of the red leather itself by itself.
Okay.
To give it a little bit of an extra pop. Next, I'm going to move on to some more Citadel lead belcher, which I'm going to put just a little bit more on these spikes. And then I'm going to do the red metallic on the lawnmower, which the first color, the first layer that we already did, is called Garnet Alchemy from scale 75, and it's a darker red. And then just not a whole lot, but on the edges, I'm going to do some Ruby Alchemy, which is a little bit brighter red, just to give it some dimension. So we'll start with the lead belcher. I'm not doing a lot. I'm just going to make sure I didn't make a mess of it anywhere and go over the tips of the lead belcher. Check the back. That way. And then we'll go in with the Garnet Alchemy. Do something here. We'll take a little bit of the ruby and just hit some of the edges. So it's not super bright, but you get the effect of it. And once we're done doing the metallic alchemy, I'm gonna go back and do the black. I'm gonna touch up anything that got messed up with the Abaddon from Citadel, and then I like using Corvus black from Citadel as a highlight. It's not super black; it's a little bit more gray, and it just gives us a tiny bit of a highlight. And because of the fact we're going to do effects paints and he's supposed to be dirty and everything, I don't think we need to go super high with the black. So I will finish that up and I'll show you guys what it looks like.
So we did the green on the coat.
Yep, looks nice.
Highlighted it up, anything else. And now when I'll see what steps we did. I glued on a Green Stuff World garbage bag that we got.
Very cool.
They have some cardboard boxes and other stuff was there too.
Yep.
And then I also took some of the cans that we got from Green Stuff World too.
Yeah,
So
very
like
cool.
that. And then they actually, if you print from the site, you can actually get little things you can glue onto the cans too.
Nice.
I just take school glue and then glue it on the side and wrap it around it, and it works okay. You don't got to use super glue or anything.
No, it comes out really nice.
And then I use super glue when you glue them onto the base because they're the plastic that you need to use super glue.
Okay.
I wouldn't try plastic glue because it would come off.
Right.
And for the garbage bag, I just did green gray for the garbage bag, and the little fish that's in there, I did blue green,
Nice.
blue gray, and then the little gut that's inside or dirt, I just used a darker brown. You can use any brown, but I used the model color brown.
Cool.
And the ribbon on the top, the twist tie, I used, and you use any type of red, but I use model color red.
Cool.
And that's what that looks like so far. So he's pretty much done. We just got to do effects on him now.
Yeah.
So, and the rim, because all our abominations we paint gray, so I'll just paint that gray afterwards.
Yes.
But for the effect paint, I'm going to take the Green Stuff World Vomit.
Yep.
And we're going to put it around them a little bit. So I'll put that on my palette. So I'm going to do the vomit now.
Okay.
Just put it on my palette. It's kind of like Citadel Nurgle's Rod. It's just like slime that comes. It's transparent, so you can just make it look like it's coming from his mouth, really.
Yep.
Make it look like he's drooling down here.
Yuck.
I also have something to make the garbage bags look all slimy and yuck.
Yeah.
Take it from the hole in the garbage bag too.
Yep.
Put it, and it pools a bit too, so you can make like a pool of it at the bottom of it.
Yeah, cool. Very cool.
that. There's no open sores or anything on the back. So I'm just going to leave it like that.
Yep, looks good.
And then the last effect. So now that we got the vomit on there,
Yep.
I'm going to make them look dirty. So
Okay.
kind of like we did in the blood effect and the other one with spraying with the straw, I'm going to use Typhus corrosion.
Okay.
Get up a bit. Just load up any crappy brush you use.
Yep.
Firm bristles work too. It doesn't matter if they're soft or not, but you get more spread if the bristles actually are soft.
Okay.
So, just gonna lay them down this way, put them in a little box, and I'm gonna blow downwards so it looks like the dirt's going that way.
Okay.
Once again, it's done trial and error. There's no wrong or right way to do it.
Yeah.
Get his feet dirty and over by here. Let's splatter them there. Just gonna dirty him up a bit. A little more than others because this is the hobo one, so I want to kind of make them look all dirty.
Yeah.
And that's about it, we'll say. And when you get him in the light, we got some on his foot there. Came around here on the base.
Yeah, looks
Some
good.
splattered on the bandages.
Yeah.
And went up his coat a bit.
Yep. Looks good.
So, that's him done. I'll do the rim, and then once he's completely done, we'll show you what he looked like.
So we finished up with the blacks, and you can see now when you look at it in the light that there's a bit of a lighter shine on the black where the light would hit it. That's where we put the Corvus. That's where I think Corvus works really well. So finished up with the black and everything else, and then I painted the base because I knew I was going to do grass and dirt for the basing. So I painted the base with Morphang by Citadel, Morphang Brown, and
Just in case that if the tufts didn't cover everything, you'd have dirt on the bottom, right?
Yeah, and so it looked like there was dirt on the bottom, because if you just glued the grass on there, if you saw the black through, it would look weird. So after that, I glued on some tufts. Well, some of these green tufts, and I used plastic glue to do that because it helps it stick better. And then for the actual cut grass, I used Battlefield's Black Battleground, which is just some loose darker grass that I glued on with school glue. And now I'm going to add some goo to him to make him look a little bit grimy. And to do that, I use the Green Stuff World Vomit color, which is a little bit translucent. So it goes on and makes it look like we've used it for bile and just goo in general. So I'm going to do a little bit coming out of his mouth. I'm drooling down his front here. Get some down his front on his apron here a bit. Go all the way down and pull a little bit on the ground here.
Even on the brain, if you wanted the brain to look gooey, you could put it.
Yep, that was actually the second place I was going to go. Put a little bit. Maybe not a ton of it on the brain.
And you can experiment with it, like mixing it with other washes and stuff. Maybe you get some weird gooey.
Yeah, just give it a little
other
bit.
color too.
A little bit on the brain, and then I'm not going to do every sore on his body, but we'll hit some of the pustules and some of the broken up skin here with it a little bit.
And then you just got to do the rim on it with gray, right? Like the other abominations?
Yeah, we paint all our abominations with gray, so I'll be doing that around the rim next, and then I will show you guys what it looks like at the end.
So we finished up the Hobo Abomination.
Yeah, and Abominawild, our last two abominations.
Yeah,
I think they turned out pretty good.
Yeah. Here one, two. So yeah, those are the last two abominations that we finished.
Yep.
So they'll go with the rest of them. So that's all of them done.
Nice.
So if you want to see them in action, you can check out our playthroughs for Zombicide too also.
Yeah, because we do as many abominations as we pull on the board. So you can see all of them or none of them or some of them or all at the same time.
So the next painting video, maybe we'll do something with color shift too.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking. If there's something specific you want us to try to do with color shift, please let us know.
And maybe this one was a little long, so maybe we'll split it up too. Maybe you'll do a painting video and then I'll do one.
Yeah.
So maybe 1 week you'll do one and I'll do one the next week.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for coming out and checking out our videos. We hope you enjoyed this painting video and hope you love some Zombicide.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.